Okay, so we're going to go ahead and finish off the watering efficiently presentation that we started previously. And we're going to dive in and continue talking about our sprinkler system efficiency. So the effects of overwatering can include encouraging growth of fungus and bacteria. So, encouraging those weeds such as dollar weeds seen here on the right. This is really an effect of a wet or overwatered lawn. It's going to promote that shallow root system and reduce oxygen to the roots. So that can cause stress to our plants. It's really just going to create a decaying environment. And so we want to be careful with our overwatering and applying the proper amount of water. And one way to do that is by watching the weather. So here you can see a rain gauge on the right. That's going to help us better understand how much rain was applied to our property. You can also do this through apps now, of course, with our smartphones. There's various apps that can give you the amount of rain that your area received. Of course, we all know about the weather predictions, but that data is available. And so you can look online or just install a rain gauge and you can easily see the amount of water that's provided to you for free. Rain is free irrigation. So again, we want to use irrigation as a supplement to the rain that has fallen on our property. We want to avoid watering the landscape if it has rained in the last 24 hours and if rain is forecast within the next 2 days or 48 hours. We also want to make sure that every operating irrigation system has a rain shutoff device. And so we talked about the rain sensor. Now, this can be very basic. So it's literally raining and the system will shut off. So it uses these little corks. As the corks swell, it turns off the system. However, as technology advances, we have smart irrigation technology, and you can have systems that are very educated, fancy, and basically will shut off if the rain is predicted or forecasted, and the system is much more apt to turn off. So the very basic, you got to have a rain shut off if you're having an irrigation system. That's required by law. But if you want to get super fancy with it, you can also do the right to your phone smart irrigation technology. Sprinkler system devices. So we talked about that rain shutoff device. Again, it's going to help you apply the right amount of water to your lawn and your landscape in conjunction with the rain that has fallen. So by doing that, it's going to save you money, reduces wear on your irrigation system. So every time we run it, we're opening ourselves up to more clogs. And the less we run it, the less clogs and maintenance in general. It reduces disease and damage in our plants. Again, if we're creating a wet and rotting environment in our landscape, a lot of people think more water is better, but that's not always the case. It helps us protect our surface and our groundwater. So, over irrigating has two problems in that water quantity and water quality that I talked about at the beginning. We really have an issue if we're overwatering, we're pulling water from the aquifer so much, and then we're creating potentially stormwater runoff as the water starts to billow off of our property. So that runoff can contribute to surface water pollution as well. And we want to conserve water. We want to prevent irrigation after recent rain events. So there's a lot of reasons to do it, which is the most important thing is that we do conserve water. Soil moisture sensors are a great way to measure the amount of water applied to your property. So like I mentioned, those rain sensors are little corks that are kind of up by your roof, and it's more in the atmosphere. And so it can dry out, it can, be in direct sunlight. It might catch the rain, whatnot. So these soil moisture sensors are very efficient, where it's a probe in the soil and it actually tells the system, here's how wet the soil is. This is what the roots are experiencing. It helps to do that. There's a lot of benefits to this, which is reduced water consumption. It can contribute to deeper root growth, reduces soil and runoff and leaching of the water. prevent favorable conditions for pests and disease. So again, if we're overwatering, then it's going to have more fungus and things like that. So if we're using our soil moisture sensor to better understand the moisture in the soil, it's going to prevent that. It can set lower and upper thresholds to maintain an optimum soil moisture, which plants absolutely love. Soil moisture sensors are effective in all soil types. So it could be sandy or sandy loam or whatever you may have. You want to place it in the driest location or best representative of the moisture. So you want to pick an area, make sure it's not under the eave of your house. Obviously, that's not what all of your plants are experiencing. Large landscapes may need one per zone, but if you're a home landscape, that's probably not necessary. Just if we're talking commercial use. Place 5 feet from structures. So again, you're not getting a skewed data result. So away from the swales, away from the gutters, maybe even neighboring yards. And then 3 feet from the landscape beds if you're trying to measure for a turf zone. Because again, that mulch, if the mulch in the landscape is going to skew different than what your turf is. So you can see here, it's just almost tucked like a little baby in that soil, right in there as we fold over that turf, and it would help to read that data. Getting into sprinkler system devices. So looking at our controllers, their properly set irrigation controller can save thousands of gallons of water. So not only that, but we're protecting our plants. The schedule must change. So as plants become established and things grow, as the seasons change and the rainfall changes, here in Florida, we have our rainy season, which is the summertime. And so we don't want to be applying the same amount of water year round. How to set it. So you want to get into your manual. As I said in the video, each timer is different. In here, we're showing the Hunter. That's also what I have in my video. So you want to look for, those time clock settings. Typically, they'll have a dial. This is a newer one, and they've even become more sophisticated, but some people still have the old punch clocks. So those are going to be a different setup than, say, this one here. We want to make sure that the program has one start time, or you'll be running that program multiple times. So making sure that that controller is not, you're looking at the days of the week that is set in addition to the start time. It'll also indicate AM or PM, and then you want to start it early enough so you get that watering done by 10 a.m. So again, 6 a.m. through 8 a.m. is a great time. You want to hit all the zones and make sure that you're done by 10 a.m. And then you can use those arrows to kind of push the plus and negative, typically is what you'll see on your device. And you want to use those arrows to increase or decrease the number of minutes. And so again, the catch can method that I showed in the video is going to help you determine the amount of water that your system puts out. And that's critical because each system is different. So we might all have this Hunter, but we might have different size of PVC pipes. It could be a 1/2 inch, could be 3/4 inch. We could have different days of the week that we can irrigate. And we might live in a very large community where our pressure might be lower than, say, in the next community over. So if your system is putting out a lot of volume of water, it won't need to run as often and as long. Another thing to consider is, the style of heads that you have. Do you have a pop-up sprayer that's going to deliver just a little bit of water, or do you have a rotor head that's going to really spray out over the turf or the landscape? So maybe you have micro irrigation that's going to even be less volume of water output, but it's directly watering those irrigation zones. So, and right at the root zones. So, there's no magic time. Here you can see, an hour and 25 minutes, I believe. And that might be because the pressure is really low in this instance, or maybe they are on all pop-up sprayers. It just really depends. So One other thing to consider is that micro irrigation is actually exempt from a lot of our watering restrictions. And so if you do make the plunge and install micro irrigation, you can actually water, you don't have to follow those restrictions, although that's not always the best for our plants again, but it's just something to consider as a benefit for micro irrigation. So open that manual. I know it's not the most fun thing to do on a Saturday, but we do need to dive into those manuals to better understand our systems. And, talking with a professional can also help. So looking at the days of the week that you're watering, again, here you can see the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all the days of the week on the dial. Some of them it's actually in the digital system. So understanding those, and then use these buttons to set the days of the run to run the sprinklers. Do you need to water 2 days a week? During the fall and winter months, your grass and plants will require less water. So those are things to consider. And then you can set different programs as well. So here you can see program A indicated. If you're using a lot of water, it may be possible that you're running multiple programs. So maybe you have it set where, the program A is, going out every Tuesday and Thursday morning, and then program B is also going on every Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, so you want to make sure that you're diving into these and better understanding how often the system is going, because sometimes we're just going to work and not really paying attention to our irrigation systems that might be going off 5 days a week. And a lot of times with our turf plant diagnostic clinic we have here at Extension, we'll have people bring in turf that, they're like, what insect is this? What problem is occurring here? And 9 times out of 10, it is really just overwatering. We're seeing saturated soils when we look at those roots. We're seeing fungus starting to occur. And we start talking to them about, what are your irrigation practices? Do you have an irrigation regimen that you're following? So protecting our plants is paramount. To manually run all stations, you can turn the knob to point to typically an area on the dial that will then turn it on. So you can do manual for all settings. That's, say if you are doing some troubleshooting, some maintenance, and you want to see what's going on, if the spray heads are clogged or maybe the pipes are burst and broken, you can turn that on just to do your checks. To manually run one station, you turn knob to point to, for example, here, where it's just a single station is starting to run. After setting your time clock, you want to go back and review all of your settings. And then you would just push to run here at the top. Now, again, this is for this specific unit. You might have something different. So your manual and potentially calling the company can help you navigate any of those issues. And sprinkler system devices, did you know that an automated irrigation system uses 47% more water than a non-automated system? So by having these systems in our house, we are committing to, conservation. We want to dedicate ourselves to saying, I will check those pipes, I will check those rotor heads for clogs, I will, check my settings. And that's because if we don't, then we're going to be part of that overuse and overconsumption. If your home doesn't have an irrigation system, maybe it doesn't need one. I know in my previous house, I did not have an irrigation system and we had Bahia. It looked great all the time, as long as we kept that mode and, occasionally some hand watering in the droughty part of the year. And it looked really good. I've also seen a cute lawn with perennial peanut integrated with Bahia. And so you get those little yellow flowers, but coverage throughout that looked really nice. There's a lot of Florida friendly plants that you can select that, you don't have to spend that high ticket item to get an irrigation system, that you can maybe use that money to install some Florida friendly perennial plants that'll provide you satisfaction year round. So again, for electronic controllers, we want to allow for flexible scheduling of irrigation system. So the days of the week, the runtime, the percentage, inherently they're going to do this for us. And it can be advantageous to cut back on the irrigation during the summer rains, particularly as we look at plant health. And then they have the capacity to run multiple programs for varying zones. So they are useful and they could save us time, but we also want to say, this comes with a responsibility to being good stewards of that water. So in summary, we want to have protect our water quality and our water quantity. The water quality that we have in our surface water is really important as we look to the future. And again, if you like to recreate, to fish, to swim, to boat in our waterways, doing things like that requires good water quality. We don't want algae that are, for example, toxic to the human skin, such as microcystin or other algae, which are typically fueled by our nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen. So just be stewards of the utilization of fertilizer as well. And then our water quantity, looking at how much water, if we like to enjoy springs and in our Florida region, we need to have enough water in our aquifer to supply those springs as well. So, it's either we select conservation or we are going to see a diminishing in our flow levels at our springs. For domestic water use, you want to understand where your water is coming from. So, is it potable water? Maybe you live on a lake and it's lake water. Maybe you're on reclaimed, and reclaimed water can have some additional kind of knowledge that you would need in working with that product. Watering efficiently, again, there's some ways and some Florida friendly behaviors that you can integrate to make sure that you are watering efficiently. And again, this is not only going to help you be a steward of the environment, but make sure that we're having healthy plants and healthy landscape. So, we talked about the catch can method. That's a fantastic tool, an easy peasy one to utilize to help calibrate our systems. Plant selection, again, looking at those drought tolerant, cold tolerant, really just hardy Florida friendly plants, which could include natives. It could include non-native species that are going to bloom and provide nectar for wildlife while still being able to resist those drought periods. Irrigation is important. It keeps our plants healthy, but again, we need to look at it and frame it as a supplement to the rain. So if the rain is falling and we're in the rainy season, we want to know how much water is being applied to our landscape and act accordingly. And then, irrigation system maintenance, making sure that we cover any pipes that are broken and replace those, not using the system while pipes are burst and broken, cleaning those clogged heads, making sure that those landscape donuts aren't buried under the turf that's gotten overgrown or soil and sediment has deposited there. So maintaining that irrigation system and calibrating your controller as well so that it's set properly. And with that, thank you so much for everything that you've done for the UF Extension Master Gardener Program. We're so excited to have you joining us as new volunteers and help us educate the community on these really important Florida-friendly issues. I'm Tina McIntyre, Florida Friendly Landscaping Agent with the UF Extension in Seminole County. Thank you so much.